If you wanted an affordable and easy way to get into sublimation printing, then you're not going to want to miss this video. Hey, what's going on? It's the Printer Guy here, and in this video I'm going to be talking about my sublimation printing setup that I was able to put together for $399. That's everything you see here on the screen minus the designs that you will need to purchase. But in this video I'm going to go through one by one each one of these items and talk about the price, and then I'm going to show you my sublimation prints and how I was able to do my very first sublimation printing projects. First, of course, is the most expensive item. It is the printer that I use, the Epson EcoTank 2400. This is one of the more affordable Epson EcoTank printers you can use. I did convert it from regular ink to sublimation ink. I do have a video of me doing that here on my channel. So $173 for this printer. Then, of course, there's the sublimation ink that you need to go along with your printer. I paid about $20 for this ink. There's going to be a link down in the description below for each of the products I end up talking about in this video. Next is the sublimation paper, which I actually ended up using a different type of sublimation paper, and that sublimation paper was a little bit less than $20. So I'm just rounding up for that one. The next thing I purchased was a Cricut heat press. This is the Cricut Easy Press 3, which was about $90. I did a review on this heat press on my channel, so make sure to check that out. Along with the heat press, I got a heat press mat. That's what you're going to put under whatever media it is that you are printing or sublimating on with the heat press, because you don't want any of that heat to get onto a table or any other surface. It could do some damage. Along with that are these heat press sheets, heat resistant tape, and heat resistant gloves, all about $8 in total. Each item was around $8. Now, this is the media I chose to start out with, and in total it cost me about $65 for everything you see here on the screen. That's the two different types of shirts, 4 or 5 each, give or take, and then about 10 metal signs. And I'll of course link all of these products, like I said, down in the description below. I am going to be showing you what I ended up printing on these shirts and metal signs, but I did want to mention sublimation ink is what you're going to need to do this project. Now, you can choose to install the ink, sublimation ink, from the beginning, and you can buy sublimation ink with the link down in the description below, or you can do a conversion like I'm showing you here on the screen. There's a link below for a cleaning kit, but you also want to get those video instructions on my channel if you're wanting to convert a Epson EcoTank printer that you already have. That might be cost effective for you instead of having to buy a new Epson EcoTank printer. But of course, like I said, the easiest way is to just install the sublimation ink from the beginning and start printing on sublimation paper. Now, getting started with our sublimation setup is the first thing we need to do is set up the heat press. This heat press is very simple to use, very easy, but you do need to set up with the Cricut app. So you're going to want to create an account and go through all of that process. And once your heat press is set up, you then can start sublimating or start heating up sublimation paper to print on the media that you're wanting to print on. Now, the exact website I used for these designs was designbundles.net, but I'm going to be linking to another website as well so that you can get some designs purchased, and that is just the best way to go, is to find designs yourself. You can type in the search bar what you're looking for, and that's how you can get designs for your sublimation printing. Now, this is the design I ended up printing on the metal sign, and I of course had to sign up for a subscription and pay my fees so that I could download this design. So I did that. Once I had the design downloaded on my Mac computer, I opened up the file and I was able to open up the PNG file. From here, what you need to do is I clicked Command Print or Command P, and that opens up a whole bunch of settings, and it gives you the view of prior to printing. It lets you select all the different settings, and you will need to adjust these to print correctly on sublimation paper. You can also do this, of course, with Windows. I do have a tutorial I'm going to be coming out with on how to do this process with a Windows operating system. But basically, I chose to use photo on presentation paper matte, and then I selected a specific size. Really, you should be able to do 8.5 by 11 for the most part. And then your scale, this is very specific and very important. I have a specific video for this on my channel I'm going to be linking to as well. But basically, with Mac specifically, this scale can really be adjusted, and you can do a print test so that you can see what exact size you actually want to print out, because you may want it bigger, you may want it smaller. Flipping horizontally as well is very important to understand. That is basically printing it in an inverse manner, so that way when you actually are able to sublimate it, it goes on correctly. So flipping horizontally or mirroring, but you can't use both at once. So I'm going to show you here just a second the option to actually do the mirroring, but you can't do both at once. So you need to either mirror the image or flip horizontally. They're the same exact thing, but you can't do both at once, because if you do, then it'll just get it back to where it was and it'll print incorrectly on the sublimation paper. Once you are satisfied with the scale, with the sizing, with the mirroring or flipping horizontally, you can then hit print, and that is where you will print on sublimation paper. Quick note here on the sublimation paper that is linked down below is that you really want to make sure you're using the correct type of sublimation paper. I started out with sublimation paper that was for dark fabrics. That is not going to work for printing on metal signs. So I needed to switch to something different, and that's the one that's linked down below. It's a more general sublimation paper that you can use to print on a lot of different things, including metal signs. And so I'm going to show you some of the failures that I had with actually printing with the wrong type of paper, sublimation paper, later in this video, but this is the metal sign I'm going to be now putting on the design. And when you're printing on a metal sign and you print it on the paper horizontally like I did, you'll have to do some measuring and some centering. You'll want to take a look at this before you do any of the heating or any of the other prep. Just kind of line things up, and you may need to cut the paper, which is what I end up doing. You can measure out with a measuring tape and kind of just look at the design, look at where it could be centered. You can mark up the back of the paper. That shouldn't be a problem at all. And then once you have decided that and are able to see that it's pretty centered, that's where you can begin the process of cutting and taping and doing all that kind of stuff. Of course, taping is when you've already heated up the media. So at this point, I have not heated up the media. I attached the design, the sublimation paper, but I'm going to have to end up taking this off and reattaching it. So having that, maybe that tape off to the side ready to attach once you have cut the design down to size. And there are some instances where you won't need to do any cutting or much measuring. You'll just know and have a good eye for where you need to place the design. And there are some cases where it will be a lot easier than in this case, printing on a metal sign with a mismatched, paper where you have to cut it down. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat up the media, and I'm further along in the process here on this video, but I'm showing you one of my failures. So this is using the wrong sublimation paper. I went through this about 5, 6, 7 different times. I tried using different levels of heat, different amounts of time, but when you're using the wrong sublimation paper, you're gonna have a lot of failed attempts. You need to be using the right type of sublimation paper for what you're printing on. And really, it was just on my part, I did not understand or realize that the dark fabric sublimation paper does not work with metal signs. So when I made the switch, it was really easy. Within 2 tries, I was able to get the right amount of heat and the right amount of sublimation, and I was able to finally, at this point, do the correct sublimation settings and be able to successfully print on the metal sign. If you wanted a more in-depth tutorial of how I was able to do this printing on a metal sign, I have a separate video for that, and also for what I'm about to show you, which is finally the t-shirt, which is 3T. It's a kid's size t-shirt and babies, onesie, 12 to 18 months. This is a combination design, so it's big sister, little sister. I did need to do quite a bit of scaling for this design, and that's another video that I made, which is basically printing out 3 different sizes and deciding which one actually works for the t-shirts that I'm printing on, or the onesie that I'm printing on. So I ended up deciding on this size. I successfully was able to print with the correct type of sublimation paper, which is the same paper I used for the metal sign, and this is the design printed successfully. The next design is the 12 to 18 months. This one I wanted to make it a little bit smaller, so I did some scaling to bring down the size, and going through the sublimation process, heating it up, I was able to successfully heat up the media and then print on the design. Now this is what I was able to print with a setup just under $400, or you can say at $400. Very inexpensively, I was able to do sublimation printing fairly quickly. There was some of a learning curve, some things I needed to get used to that I had never done before, but I was able to successfully print out on this media, and I'm very proud of these prints, really happy how they turned out, and of course, there's more to come in the future. Thank you so much for watching until the end of this video. I handpicked 2 videos that are here on the screen for you to watch next. Also, consider subscribing to this channel. There's so much helpful content for you if you're a printer owner, and it's just good to have a resource like this for you in the future, whether you're dealing with a printer that's not printing well or you need more printer recommendations. So I look forward to seeing you again in another video.